Hello and welcome to The Book by Book, a podcast about the odd book or two we've read. I'm your host Scott, but I'm not alone. Tobie's here too. This episode we're talking about Aliya Whiteley's The Beauty. It's going to be fairly spoilerish, but if that's okay with you, continue on and I'll see you on the other side. How's the allotment going?
Yeah, all right. I hurt my back yesterday, so I haven't been able to go up and do anything today.
Oh, crap.
I just pulled a muscle, whinged one. So that's postponed it. But everything at the moment is just doing its thing up there, growing and waiting for me to go up there and either disturb it and plant something new or give it more water and tender loving care.
Oh, okay. What are you growing there at the moment?
So I've got garlic, carrots, flowers, apple tree, gooseberry bushes, raspberry bushes, that sort of thing. Peas, some peas growing. All of this will come into fruition in June, July. So.
Oh, okay. Tobie, have you ever had any saucy feelings to your vegetables you are currently growing or have ever grown?
I feel like you've just kicked into podcast mode.
I have, yeah. Because it's segmenting in kind of.
Mm-hmm. Have I ever felt saucy towards my vegetables? I'm thinking about this a little bit too long, aren't I?
Yeah, it's not going to come off well, Tobie.
No, I haven't. I can't say I've ever wanted to do things with my carrots or pumpkins.
Tobie, I have been reading The Beauty by Aliya Whiteley.
Oh,
it's a 2014 novel.
Oh, okay, quite cool.
It's pretty short. The book itself is 215 pages.
Yeah.
But about 2/3 in, you finish The Beauty, and there's a 100-page or so short story added on.
Oh, right. Okay, that's interesting. So the main story is half the book almost.
Yeah, just a little more, which throws you. I don't know if you've ever read a book that ended when you thought you had 50 odd pages to go or something, or there was interviews. You're just not expecting an ending. Even if the book's ramping up for it, you just physically think you've got more time and space.
Yeah, you look at it and you go, that very rarely happens because I usually flick right through to the end of the book, not read the end, but...
Oh, okay.
I establish where the last chapter finishes and then see how much of that book is... Because I'm all about... No, I'm not all about, but I'm always... I look at a book and determine how many pages I've got to go to work out how long I've got left. With it, how long it will take me overall, because I'm quite a slow reader. It has more impact for me, I guess.
So we're in the future in Aliya.
What was it called?
The book is called The Beauty.
The Beauty, yes.
Yes. We're in the future, and it's a bit unspecified, and all women have died off. There is some sort of infection to the womb, and like the women have been wiped out. So we're actually 6 years on from then, I think, because there is a storyteller who sort of defines it and tells us. It's written quite fabulesquely.
Okay.
Like it's written like it's an old tale, and that everything is a distant memory, which is a little not jarring, but the style it's written and the info we have don't always quite mesh.
Okay. Because
it's telling it like something that happened, a memory, like outside of their memory, when actually it's in their lifetime. The world is just left of men, and they are just slowly dying off. And Nate is about 20, I think, and he is our resident storyteller. We sort of set in a pretty small, unnamed community. I think they just call it the Valley of the Rocks. It's very sparsely described throughout this book, but I'm picturing sort of a mid-sized village, and they don't really it's not really about the farming or how they survived or anything. Like it's actually quite a peaceful existence, though quite desolate and lonely. There's no warring. Do you know what I mean? There's everything's just sort of getting on in a quiet village life.
Right. Okay. Which is interesting.
And so Nate is our lead, and he is the village storyteller. So each, I guess, week or each night, they sort of gather around a fireplace, and he would tell stories of old. I think he can sort of make the stories up, but they're always to add something to society.
Okay.
I think they're mostly to sort of remember women past.
Right.
I think he was 16 when it all sort of kicked off. So he does remember his mother, and he does remember women. So stuff like electricity and gadgetry and technology isn't really talked about. The fact that they gather around a fireplace, do you know what I mean? That's why I was saying they've sort of settled down to a nice, what feels like an almost farming community. And so one night he's out walking, or there's just reports of a new type of mushroom fungus growing in the woods. And him and his uncle Ted, who is one of there's not that many characters. I think when it comes to actually naming characters, Uncle Ted and Nate are two very key. And there's a few side ones that come and go, like his friends. Basically, are out exploring, and they're sort of split up. And Nate gets sucked underground and finds himself in a strange underground burrow. Sort of trapped and a bit bruised. He can't get out. Out of a small hole in the corner, this is going to be tough describing, a sort of woman-shaped giant mushroom fungus comes out, and he is sort of super grotesqued out by it, but also really what's the word? Interested is not the right word.
Attracted. Attracted.
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah, we'll get to that. So it definitely starts off with repulsion, and so I think it's described as having a big, soft yellow head, but with no mouth or eyes, and it just sort of hums, and it sort of alludes to like a strange telepathy. That it doesn't really use words; it just sort of gets the message to you, and you sort of come to understand what it's trying to say. And he gets closer and closer to it until he starts having sex with it. Bit of a bombshell there, but this is quite heavily what this book is about. And again, like he's still repulsed as he's growing close to it. He's repulsed as he's growing close to it. Like he's get these really mixed feelings of disgust with himself, but being, I don't think bemused is the right word, or interested, just besotted.
Yeah.
He's just sort of gets close to it, and the conversations are strange because obviously this thing doesn't really speak. It just gives him a sense of what it means and says. Like he knows it means no harm. It brings him food, and then eventually he's just released back into upground, where he's sort of.
Has he encased in this underground cocoon in which he is visited by a humming
Mushroom lady,
woman, fungi thing? So how long is he down there for?
I think a couple of days.
Wow.
Maybe a week, but not super long, I think. And so when he's returned up, he's sort of bruised, and everyone is sort of wondering where he's been, and he's trying to tell them, but I think his uncle just said, "Save it for the fireplace. Go and heal yourself up and get better." So around that fireplace, he's basically telling the story, but he never just tells a story. He never says, "Oh my God, you never guess what happened.
Yeah.
I fell down a hole. I was in a weird burrow. This yellow mushroom lady came out." He sort of does it fabulishly. He never puts himself in the stories. It's always, there was once a man who was lost in the woods. There was like a being that at first was like scary, but then was comforting to him. Already the story is fabulous, and within it we get these further stories of like everything's told as a tale of ye olde.
Yeah.
And as he gets to the climax, like however many men there are, I guess you get the sense there's not that many, like 20, 30 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like a cloud of the mushroom ladies come into the light, and everyone has the same reaction he has. Sort of, this, what the hell is that? But it has this woman's figure.
Hang on, wait. So the guy's telling the fables.
He's around the fireplace telling the story of what happened to him.
Yeah.
And as he gets to the climax of, I'm guessing, a mushroom lady, the actual mushroom people come out into the light. He's named his bee, and he refers to them as the beauty, hence the title. But they will always refer to them as it.
Yeah.
So this is something this book does quite well. I think we talked about this before with Neil Gaiman, where he would say, like, the room started to blur and it would become a dizzying thing, and I was transported to another thing. And it takes me a while to go literally transported or emotionally and metaphysically transported. There's kind of like a big orgy with these mushrooms. Like, they sort of pair off. Each mushroom lady finds her sort of ideal mate. But this is the thing, I don't know if it's a literal orgy or just it's a mental orgy. But I guess it doesn't really matter too much. Like, it's good that it's sort of undefined. And so we set this new being species and their place in this old dying society of men now has some sort of female embodiment, but it's not human.
Yeah,
it's mushroomy, fungal, and that's kind of what this book is about. And I kind of want to call it a short story, but I think that's a bit disserviceable to it. I guess it's a novella. I can see why they added that second book in, just to sort of physically bulk it up. And it's tricky wanting to keep this spoiler free, but the juicy stuff really, really comes. Like, the book gets better as it goes. I found it a little slow to start, a little like, they're telling it like this. But once we get stuck in, it's a page turner. You're all like, what the hell is going to happen next?
Just by the sounds of it, it sounds all bizarre.
Bizarre and weird are definitely words used. Like, I was looking through a bunch of reviews to see what other people thought. Like, it's all there for a reason. There is a strong metaphors and messages that this is giving out, this book. But what it does really well is, once it's made its point and it's quite clear, it kind of drops it. Like, it can shift metaphors. Not necessarily quickly, but being, I don't know, 120 pages long. Once you realize its point and its view and the absurdity of our world and our feelings and thoughts, and now we can see that mirrored in this fantasy. It's like it's made its point, and it'll not necessarily drop it, but the story can carry on, and there's another point to be made later. 2014, I should have done my research on the movement, but obviously there's a lot of metaphor for, like, the queer transgender world going on through this. But one key thing which I thought was interesting is, like, what happens to masculinity when there's no women left in the world? When it's all masculinity. And I'm not sure it does the greatest job at exploring it. It just asks the question and nods out, because actually it's a very non-violent world they're living in.
Well, this is one of the thoughts I had when you were saying the story, is the fact that all women have gone from the world, and what has happened in this writer's scenario is the men have just gone, well, let's just get on with it and just live together, and in this small pocket anyway. What you would expect to happen would be carnage and everything else you see in all other apocalyptic type novels, banding together, going against each other, scrapping, fighting for every tooth and nail, and not supporting each other and working together and all of that sort of thing. Whereas this has taken a completely different stance, and everybody's just gone, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that everyone is very aware of the imminent end of mankind.
Yeah.
But everyone does have that sort of wisdom to them. Like, they're either sort of a wise old man or a kid, because Nate does not come off as a 21-year-old particularly. Like, his inquisitiveness, he seems like he should be younger, but then I guess this is a state where all education and everything sort of came to a stop when he was 16. So it's not to say he's like in a state of arrested development, but he hit, hit puberty, and then the world changed.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of statements. I think at one point, like when the beauty first arrive, everyone's just having a lot of sex. I guess for the young ones, they've never had sex before. The older generation are, I guess they still have the older values.
Yeah.
And they're the hardest to turn around. Like the older you are, the more you're disgusted by the beauty.
Okay.
I don't know if it's trying to say like that. If you remember women, then you're not going to want to replace them with these as cyrenictic. Is that a word? Cyrenictic, like these beauty kind of play out like sirens. Like you're very like I said at the beginning. Although you're disgusted with them and yourself, you're still attracted.
Yeah.
There's little hints that it's like pheromonial. I think I'm inventing words a lot today. Like there's something the mushroom does to you. What was I going to say? So at one point he says that he can't be away from her. Like he has to be in the same room or he gets nauseous or sick. And like the point I was making earlier, I never know. I don't know if that's literal or he's never been attached to something like this before. Right. That he can't be away from her, or that there's some sort of chemical imbalance that he physically has to be around her. And some sort of spory thing.
There's three perspectives you could come at that one. But is it not? I guess
because it never really dives deep into it. That's part of what's great about this book, and I think online people are saying is part of the problem is they'll address something in a paragraph, and it doesn't really come back to it ever again. It's just that was that. And we're moving on. They find the beauty are physically a lot stronger than men. So they start moving into the village more and more, and then they start doing the manual work because it's just a less of an issue to them. So then we start dealing with this sort of gender switching of like the physical power, right? And I think the young ones start to like putting on dresses. It's sort of a joke. I think they're starting to split clothes with the beauty, and they sort of joke that it's easier to basically have a quickie when you're a guy in a dress.
Yeah.
But it just plays into like the whole society is switching and reversing, and I guess statements on cross-dressing and transgender. Okay, so I'm going to go on from here, but if you have any inkling to read this book, stop now and go and read it. It was a really enjoyable book, like weird, definitely, and I guess we're speaking a lot of feminism and transgender, but it's not. It's obvious, but it's not heavy, if that makes sense. You're not reading it going, oh yeah, one of those books. It's
interesting that you've gone. See, from what you've told me, I wouldn't say I haven't seen it as a transgender cross-dressing thing. I've seen it more as the beauty is just a representation of the way that the male species currently, and past tense more so than maybe present tense, see women as an object, as something that you have sex with and a lesser being as such.
I mean, I guess you could take that level, but to me, it feels pretty.
The switch is that these things present themselves as that, reflect a stance on the women of the past society that have all died off. Initially, we see them, we're repulsed by them, that not so much, but then just the wanting to have sex with this. Is it basically a pillow? By the sounds of it, in my head, I was seeing it as a pillow. I'm not sure if it's a pillow, but like a white pillow thingy. What is it?
Well, they have the body shape of females, of a woman.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's quite undescribed. If all the covers have different imagery, it's sort of a soft fungal texture skin, all yellow with no mouth and eyes.
Right.
Like it has breasts, it has a vagina, it has.
Okay, so it's.
I don't know about the inner anatomy. Hence the allure, I suppose.
Yeah. So so it's that. Obviously, the males try to mate with it, but then because it's more powerful, you're getting basically them doing to the male what the male has done to the female for generations past. The beauty is now doing to the male. That's where I'm standing at this
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But like I was saying, it sort of makes its point and moves on.
Yes, this is exactly where where the spoiler part kicks in.
Yeah, so the guys start getting pregnant.
No.
And if you're pregnant and you believe the beauty is the future, you can kind of get on board. But obviously, like I was saying, there is a section of people who are freaked out. And so,
where would you start at this point in the story?
I don't know. I can't answer that.
I'm not going to hear, Scott. What would you do?
I guess you can throw that back at me for my question to you at the beginning of the podcast. I don't know. It's hard to comprehend getting to that stage because I haven't got past the early stages of everything that's gone on here. Then we get this switch of like the male body changing, preparing to give birth. And there's this nice, I guess, page and a half that, like you were saying, it's flipping everything the male society as views has pushed on, like the changes the body goes through and how frightening it can be. Except now it's on us as a man. And it sort of just keeps going. The switching over, I don't know. That's like the halfway spoiler that the men are pregnant. I don't think I need to go all the way to the end of the book for you to get the point. But there's a lot of what is the future of man, of the whole of society, right? Like they sort of can't live without these people, without these beauties. But do they want to go on with them? Except they already are. They've kind of crossed the point of the halfway mark.
Yeah. What happens do we know what happens with the babies? Was that spoiler part two?
No. It goes as weird as it has so far. Yeah. I don't think the babies are particularly any more weirder. They are just, I guess.
Are they reflections of the beauties or reflections of the males, or reflections of two?
Well, I guess they take genetically both of both.
But one's not got a head.
Well, they have a head. It's just no face. It's like a round ball for a head. But that's kind of towards the end, I suppose, when the baby's born. It's sort of, it doesn't really climax particularly well. It's a nice one, but it just sort of like, and here's where we go on from here.
Okay.
There's sort of infighting and struggles for, I guess, power. It's less than 200 pages. So there's not like massive subplots of politics or anything. It's just, for example, a group of people become particularly violent towards the beauty to expel it. And they have to deal with what is the price. If you kill a beauty, like what is there a punishment and should you be punished?
Oh, I see. Yeah, is in society and law and stuff like that. Yeah, that's another interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah, and like I said, it sort of covers everything and moves on, which I think to some people wanted more, like wanted an epic book. Yeah. I didn't. Like it's not that it's a hard read, but like you said, it's bizarre and weird, and it's a page turner partly because you want to get to the end and exit this world. Yeah. And also the way it's told, I'm going to have to stop using the word fable, but that sort of becomes a little tiresome. Like in a longer book, I don't think I could read this style of. But
how long is it in fable, and is it in the non-fable world?
Oh well, like let me have a quick look.
Is it like often, and then on the third night?
When he tells a story, it's maybe one page and a half max, maybe.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that's him around the fireplace storing, but the whole thing has a fable haze to it. To say, like I said, there's no real time setting. Mm-hmm. There's no mention of like turn on the lights or electricity, but then it doesn't say that there's not that. Like I guess it tries to be timeless.
Yeah. And
I guess it succeeds, but that's what kind of removes it from our world. Like it doesn't feel like our future can ever be this, if that makes sense. It feels like a story being told to get the point across of several points, whether you agree or not, or whatever.
Does it explain where the fungi came from? It doesn't, does it?
Sort of, yeah. It's not explicit, but when it starts growing and they're small, it is from the graves of women. That's like it's only found above women. I think I was going to hold that as a little spoiler, but I think that's actually written on the back of the book, like something's changing. There's more to it. There's little, not surprises, but twists. You know, like I was saying, there was an uncle and he has his backstory. He's sort of there as our point of who we would be.
Right.
But he was old enough. He dealt with, you know, losing all the females of the world as a sort of key member, I suppose. Whereas Nate was sort of 16. He sort of went through it as just losing his mother. Whereas the Uncle Ted went through it as someone who had to experience globally, I suppose. And the stronger your memory is of the past, I guess, the harder it is to sort of move on. Sort of central message.
The second story is not related then?
No, I believe not. I haven't read it. We can. I mean, it's only like 100 pages. And do it another time, I guess. But I'm certainly intrigued by her. Like this particular story won a lot of awards, and I'll probably check out her further. She's done a lot. I think she's like done 6 or 7 books. Just off the back of this, I would check out her other stuff. I think one of her other famous, popular ones is about witchcraft, maybe.
Yeah.
I think she commonly sits in the sort of bizarre gothic world. There's not much I've read like this, I've got to admit. Maybe The Bear, which again that doesn't really play out like this. It was just not similar themes, but it's just a short story by a lady, I forget her name, about a woman sort of getting turned on by nature. But then it's not really, it doesn't match this in any way. It just made me think of this.
Sci-fi erotica.
Yeah, so body horror erotica. I guess it's sort of too easy to say Cronenberg could do a good film of it. But I don't, that's because his visuals.
That's something I've never really like. I read there's a book I read that was short erotica. It's like short stories about erotic situations. That's about the closest I've read to a straight up novel about sex and the allure of sex and the connection between male and female.
But this book is not written for titillation. It's not written as an erotic, so we can sort of read it and rub our knees. Like it's more to bring forward the bizarre way we view sex and the opposite sex, and you know what I mean? Like not just
metaphors.
Say again.
Does it successfully deliver a viewpoint that changes, or if that's what it's set out to do, changes the way you see, the way you interact with people in the present world?
No, but like I said, I don't think it's necessary. Like it just sort of makes its statement that isn't it funny how we see this, and it doesn't sort of correct or say what is right or wrong. Like the whole birthing thing, it's like, hey, this has been going on since the dawn of man, that women give birth. But now in our society, at least, it's, you know what I mean? Like something that happens behind closed doors, I suppose. Yeah, it's still seen as, I mean, you're a father. I don't know what experiences you, I guess it's very different. Someone else giving birth to your partner giving birth. I guess it's just a lot of, not finger pointing, but just, hey, isn't it funny how we see this as this way? Just by exempling it in a crazy, bizarre, extreme way. That's my take from it. I don't know. There's quite a few thick essays on it, which I sort of glanced at, but I just wanted to get some quick reviews on it to see what the general consensus was. Like, I guess it seems something that would be ripe for like a uni dissertation rip apart. Like, what is the meaning behind this? Yeah. And I think there is a lot. It seems a very purposeful book.
Yes, that's what I picked up from the metaphors that you were telling me. They're quite laden thick, I guess.
But I really wouldn't think that takes away from the enjoyment of this as a book. Yeah. I feel like there were people out there going, oh, feminist literature, pro-transgender, why would I want to read that? But that's not what this is, right? Like, it just has a metaphor. That's at least how I sort of read through it and enjoyed it. And I did enjoy it, but I was glad it was short because of its bizarre imagery and hazy, grotesque body sexing stuff.
Would you give it out of 10?
I'm going to give it like an A-. I really like that one.
A-? Wow.
Yeah. Like it.
What's some of the top reviews that is?
I guess it was just a perfectly formed story.
Even with a slow start, you're giving it. I guess that's why the minus is there.
Yeah, well, I get in between B plus, A minus. Like, I don't know if I can ever read this again, but the memory of it will sort of. I could talk about it probably as clearly as this in like 5 or 10 years.
That's an interesting question. Like one book that did that for me, surprisingly, I think, would be War of the Worlds.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever read that one.
No, you haven't. I think we've mentioned it previously before in an earlier podcast. But yeah, that the imagery and the sense of time dripped off the page for me in that book. So yeah, it just.
Where were you in life when you read that? Like, were you a teen when you read it?
No, this is about probably, where would I have been? 10 years ago, maybe. Just it was either in and around when I was living with you guys, or just after. That was one of those books that you don't need to remember everything that happened, but you remember a feeling of reading it.
A striking novel, I guess.
Another place completely while you're reading this book, and yeah, that was a very good story. That one.
I mean,
The Beauty by.
Yeah, so that was The Beauty by Aliya Whiteley.
A minus.
I think so. I really dig it. Like I was tempted to send this to you, but I couldn't be asked. Sorry. Hey, we're going to wrap it up around there. I want to thank you for listening and hope you enjoyed. Join us again next episode, and until then, support your local bookstores and have a great day.
I really need to start reading. I really need glasses. This is why I haven't read, because I don't have glasses.
Oh, is it strain in your eyes?
Yeah, because I can't. Literally, my book's down here now.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah. It's gone up here to like.
When will things start opening up over there?
I think this week we start to get the next phase. It's like a 5-tier phase, and on the 21st of June, everybody can go back to the pubs.
Oh, okay. Soft glasses to the bar.
Yeah.